That kind of leads us into the first game, Bengals at the Browns on Thursday night. The Browns open up -7.5 down to 6. Both of these teams were in this dynamic. The Bengals, new quarterback with Joe Burrow. The Browns, new first-time head coach Kevin Stefanski. So can't learn anything from that in this game. But who do you like here?
Yeah, and I will say to that regard, like I tend to think the player is probably more resilient than the coach, because the player is one player impacting the game. The coach impacts the entire team. Like, I know you could say that like Joe Burrow as the quarterback has a huge impact on the offense, and he obviously does, but Kevin Stefanski for the Browns has to manage the every aspect of the game, including play calling and everything he has to do. So that's one of the reasons that I'm on the Bengals in this one. I just think the Bengals, they were close to tying the Chargers late. I felt like they had opportunities to win that game. And I think the Chargers defense is better than the Browns defense, personally. And, you know, I don't see how the Browns are going to improve that much on a short week. I know the Browns are not as bad as they looked against the Ravens. That was just the function of playing John Harbaugh with a ton of extra time to prepare, and there being a ton of guys out with injuries for the Browns. But I'm just nervous if Mac Wilson doesn't play. The middle of that defense for the Browns is very weak. I feel like Joe Burrow can take advantage of that because he does have good receiving weapons. And I feel like Joe Mixon will be able to get a little bit more going on the ground than he was able to against the Chargers, because the Chargers secondary and defensive line are the strengths of that defense. I feel like Cleveland has a good defensive line, but I'm a little bit less bullish on their secondary. I just feel like this spread's just a little bit too high for me. Like the Browns, I know it's the Ravens, but they just got spanked. And I feel like on a short week, they should have an advantage over Cincinnati. I'm just not sure if this is a 6-point spread for me. I might give it a 4. So I feel like it's just 2 points off at this point. And Burrow did look good at times. Like you should have had a chance to win that game in overtime if Randy Bullock doesn't get hurt. So I'm going to be on the Bengals here. I'm probably going to do 1 unit on this. As I say always, I can't not bet the Thursday night game. So 1 unit is my least confident bet. But I just think the expectations are a little bit too high for the Browns. And I think Joe Burrow was better than people realize. And I say that as one of the staunchest critics of Joe Burrow, who says he needs more time to develop at the next level. So that's my thoughts at this point.
Yeah, I think this is really going to come down to the injury report. There are a lot of question marks. Like you said, Mac Wilson. Also, the Browns are missing 2 out of their top 3 cornerbacks last week, which is another reason why I bumped up the Ravens unit count to 5. And then on the other side, DJ Reader got carted off. And it sounds like he's fine, but it's a short week, so he may not be able to play. So a lot of question marks right now. So it's hard to determine a side. I guess I'll be contradictory and take the Browns, although I could eventually switch to the Bengals. A couple of things. One, I think the spread might seem too high for many people, but the advanced line on this game was Browns -7.5, so it dropped 1.5 points. So I think that's worth noting. Also, the better team on Thursday night usually has an advantage because it's short time to prepare. Usually, the better players will do better. I assume the Browns are the better team, although, maybe you can argue that the Bengals are better because, they have Adrian Green back. Joe Burrow, I think, will get better every week. Tyler Boyd's a good player, and they have some good players on their defense. So you could make the case that the Bengals are the better team, but I think the Browns probably are. And I think there's a better chance that Reader's out. So if Reader's out, the Browns should be able to run the ball pretty well. And then you have the Bengals offensive line. And I think the Bengals offensive line might be one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And you have Myles Garrett and all those guys on Cleveland's defensive front. I think that's a big advantage for them. So right now I'm going to be on the Browns, but depending on the injury report, I could change my mind.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the Browns, especially their defensive line. Like Myles Garrett, if they line him up across from Bobby Hart, like, my goodness, that is going to be almost as big a disaster as last week was at times. Thank goodness Joe Burrow is mobile, or he would have been killed by Joey Bosa. So I don't hate the Browns. The number's just a little too high for me. Like, I feel like I'm lower on the Browns this year than I think you are. We were both very low on the Browns last year compared to the public, and we turned out to be right about that. I will just doubt them consistently until they prove me wrong. That's been a good strategy in the past. But yeah, this game is definitely one of the tougher ones to figure on the slate, though, I will say that.
Yeah, I wonder what your record would be if you bet the under on the Browns every single year. I know that from speaking to our proxy Andy on the Super Contest, he pointed out to me this summer that if you bet the over on the Chiefs every single year, he would have won with Andy Reid. So I think the opposite is true with the Browns. So yeah, you could be right. Maybe like I said, maybe the Bengals are the better team. So before we move on to Sunday, if you're watching YouTube, please hit subscribe. That would mean a lot to us. Hit the like button, notification bell, leave a comment. Like all that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. So anyway.